Was Gandhi an antinatalist? As it is always the case with Gandhi, you will find opposing views expressed in the literature. Lawrence will soon be coming out with a very well researched video analyzing Gandhi's view about antinatalism. It would be interesting to know what this father of the nation of the most populous country in the world thought about not procreating. One more personality who can be said to have curious views on antinatalism is Richard Stallman, seen here interviewed by Amanda in the latest episode of the Exploring Antinatalism podcast. Richard Matthew Stallman, also known as RMS, is the founder of the Free Software Foundation and creator of GNU Project. In his 2012 Why Is It Important to Have Few or No Children, he explains why he decided to not have any children and also urged other people to do so. But he is not an antinatalist in the traditional or ethical sense. He has also criticized Bennett's Better Never to Have Been and also is opposed to extinction or even applying antinatalism to everybody. They talk all about it in the latest episode of the Exploring Antinatalism podcast. City Voices is a support organization for those with mental health problems. Amanda Sukunik was invited to one of their talks to introduce antinatalism. It is a challenging job to introduce antinatalism to a bunch of complete strangers. The topic is complex, you might not know where to start or which arguments to put forth first, and people's reaction could be completely wild. But Amanda did a wonderful job of explaining what the concept is in a very relatable way and without going into philosophical technical details. The result was that most people were accepting of the idea, some were even convinced, while some remained on the fence. So, a huge congratulations to Amanda. Her talk is definitely an example of how to do effective antinatalism activism. For the first time, there is now a book themed on antinatalism in Bengali. Bengali, or Bangla as it is called, is the language of the state of West Bengal in India and of the country Bangladesh. It is spoken by over 280 million people. To put that in perspective, that is more than 80% of the entire population of United States. Sumit and his team of Bengali antinatalists have been doing antinatalism activism for many years. They have this new book published called Ostito Hinotar Shanti, which means the peace of non-existence. And they are doing free book distribution events this month. First even happened yesterday, and we'll look at those wonderful photos later on. To bear children into this world is like carrying wood to a burning house. These are the words of Norwegian philosopher and mountaineer Peter Wessel Zapffe. He is well known for his antinatalistic views, but his main work has remained inaccessible to most of the English-speaking world. But the good news is that the translation On the Tragic will be published in 2024, probably next month. Zapffer's concerns about the burden of suffering for humans due to their overly developed consciousness seem to be reflected in this book too. The overview says that the book is a sober account of the perils of consciousness for the human species. Philipp Mainlander was a German philosopher in Schopenhauerian tradition of pessimism. An English translation of his book, The Philosophy of Redemption, has been published this month. The book may not refer to antinatalism in the modern sense, but note Emil Sharon's review of the book, which says, among Schopenhauer's disciples was a certain Philipp Mainlander, who particularly attracted me. There was a book recently published that is on 15th of December of last year, called Expanding the Critical Animal Studies Imagination. The general idea is to expand our circle of concern for animals beyond traditional domains. The book talks about intersections of animal liberation movements with various different aspects, including antinatalism. The central thesis of this book is that to remain relevant and effective in its mission, critical animal studies, or CAS, must push its own boundaries and connect with evolving social justice movements. It further states the goal of pushing CAS to new territories via building solidarity with other social justice movements that it has hitherto had little to no direct engagement with. The Institute of Critical Animal Studies ICAS was founded on the mission to be in solidarity with and be part of radical and revolutionary actions, theories, groups, and movements for total liberation. This book aims to expand the already broad conceptual horizon that makes up the organization and the project of CAS. The book includes at least 3 chapters relating to antinatalism. 1. Animal liberation through procreative justice. Secondly, antinatalism, veganism, and the imperative of a total liberationist perspective. And third being procreation and aviation, the elephants in the vegan room. So it is good that antinatalism is recognized as a social movement, and organizations like Critical Animal Studies would want to express solidarity with it. A new book, Should We Go Extinct? A Philosophical Dilemma for Our Unbearable Times by Todd May will be published on 6th August 2024. 6th August, by the way, is also Hiroshima Day, and I don't know if the book publication is planned accordingly or it is just a coincidence. In Should We Go Extinct, May reasons both for and against further procreation. He discusses the value that only humans can bring to the world and to one another, as well as the goods like art and music that would be lost were we no longer to be here. This raises the question that if we are not here to value those things, then for whom is that a loss? But anyway, the book also details the suffering that we cause to nature and to the non-human world. May considers the prospects and the complexities involved with changes like an end to factory farming, curbing scientific testing of animals, reducing the human population, and seeking to develop empathy with our fellow creatures. He is not asking direct antinatalist questions from the perspective of potential beings who would be brought here otherwise. He is only asking about the harms that humans do to other beings, including what he calls as nature. But still, the book asks some important questions like, how do we value what human beings add to the world against the harm and pain we cause each other and other living creatures? Antinatalist Handbook is a compilation of common excuses given for procreation and explanation of why those are at fault. It is a great place for anyone who wants to know why antinatalists think the way they do. The handbook is available in 15 different languages. This week, 16th language was added to that list. Lawrence, who is the creator of this book, tweeted that the handbook is now available in Korean language. We have covered the paper Confessions of an Antinatalist by Matti Hayry in one of the previous videos on this channel. There's a response article to this on several websites by Wessel J. Smith. The article did not offer any counter-arguments other than to complain that a prestigious journal like Cambridge Quarterly of Healthcare Ethics allowed a bioethicist to publish a paper on extinction. Written in a pejorative and condescending tone, it concludes by saying that animals in the wild suffer far more than most humans and many domesticated animals, red in tooth and claw and all that. So why not eliminate all organisms capable of feeling pain if the point is to end evil of suffering? I guess we should not expect logic from nihilistic philosophers. This is quite ridiculous because Matti explains why he is against involuntary human and wild animal extinction in precisely the quote above that particular sentence. It says, I do not want to impose my own will upon a self-conscious collective that wants to live, humans, or a group of self-directing, possibly sentient beings whose drive for survival is beyond my comprehension, non-humans in the wild. Secondly, calling Matti a nihilistic philosopher is completely false. In the moral sense, Matti's views, or antinatalism in general, is anything but nihilism. It is disappointing to see such childish claims written in poor taste under the guise of being an intellectual. There was one more article on reinformation.tv talking about Matti's latest paper, which also featured photo of the handsome author. It was not as disappointing as the one we just saw, but it had some dubious sentences, even considering the context around them. For example, there is a subsection called, For an Antinatalist, Human Life Has No Obvious Meaning. But the section itself did not talk anything about meaning. And it is clear to antinatalists that not just human life, but life in general lacks what Benatar calls cosmic meaning. However, moral nihilism does not follow from existential nihilism, which is why antinatalists like Matti are taking so much effort for antinatalism. Matti's stance on extinctionism prompts the article to say that the nice Matti Hayry is a real conceptual antinatalist villain. Matti very clearly states the difference in his stance in principle about extinction and in practical about opposing any imposition of his views onto others. To describe this, the article says, and I quote, there is something both terrifying and ridiculous about Matti Hayry. This claim is not clearly explained. It only explains what Matti is saying, but not why it is terrifying or ridiculous. Anyway, the article still comes closer to what was actually said in the paper, which is a good thing. There was an article on worldatlas.com talking about what is antinatalism. It tried to cover different views of antinatalists, including human-centric as well as sentiocentric antinatalism. It was quick to point out that antinatalism is different than pro-mortalism. Pro-mortalism places positive value on death. Even though most of antinatalists would support a right to die voluntarily with dignity, antinatalism itself is opposition only to starting a new life rather than to continuing an existing one. It referred to ancient Greek philosopher Sophocles and the founder of Stoicism, Seneca, who held similar negative views to birth. It also referred to Christian sects like Marcionites and Encratites. Marcionites recognize that this world is full of suffering and that people should stop having children. Encratites saw living as a continuous process of dying, and the only way to avoid that was to not have new children. In analyzing whether Buddhism is an antinatalist religion, it referred to Masahiro Morioka's argument that Buddhism is both antinatalist and anti-antinatalist. This is because Buddhism recognizes that this world is suffering and people are born into it, but also requires that to achieve nirvana, that is to be liberated, they need to be born here in the first place. It briefly explained Benetta's asymmetry without going too much into its details. It concluded with adoption as a loophole. Usually, most antinatalists view adoption as a nobler deed than just not having children, but it can also be seen as a workaround to fulfill one's desires of parenthood without starting a new life. There was an article in The Telegraph, Why Plunging Populations May Not Be a Bad Thing. This was not an antinatalist article per se, but it pointed that the fear mongering from the likes of Elon Musk and Pope Francis needs to be looked at with a balanced view. It also points out at an important flaw in the pro-natalist messaging that says one should have babies for the economy, whereas it should be the other way around, that economy is there so people can have babies. And this is true. Using children as a means to sustain economy or to achieve national or notional goals is deeply unethical. And finally, I leave you with some photos of the antinatalist book distribution event. Hope you like them.